Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Little vote, little thing happened in Congress. One of those interesting kind of moments, one of the messaging kind of things that makes you go, amazing where we are. Kind of one of those glaring, flashing red light moments where you go, things are messed up. Things are badly broken. And you look to 63 Republicans in the House. You go, oh, Rick, you're always picking on the Republicans. Why are you always picking on the Republicans? Oh, why are you always picking on the Republicans? 63 House Republicans opposed a bill that simply would have honored Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg as the first two female justices on the Supreme Court. They would have gotten statues. They would have been placed in prominent locations within the Capitol complex, honoring the two women on the Supreme Court. The preference would have been somewhere near the old Supreme Court chamber of the United States Capitol, somewhere near there. Wasn't overly costly, wasn't going to break the budget, but 63 Republicans in the House absolutely opposed to it. And they're the extreme. The Boberts, the Marjorie Three Names, the Scott Perrys in my neighborhood, the Crenshaws. They're the extreme of the right. In the Senate, unanimous consent. It was a voice vote. This stuff used to be done like that. What my friend Bob Ney used to call a yawn vote. Yep, okay, yeah, get it done. Yeah. It's like naming post offices. You just, okay, whatever. It got done. The wheels go round and round. When you can't get 63 Republicans to go, yeah, Sandra Day O'Connor, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, yeah, being the first two women to break that glass ceiling, to get on the Supreme Court, yeah, it's worth a statue in the Capitol complex. Because look, there are a bunch of statues there. Okay, great. Now, could you argue that, Sandra Day O'Connor, if I were in the House, could I go, no, wait a minute, Sandra Day O'Connor, she's responsible for everything that's wrong with this country right now. And you go, what are you talking about, Rick? Well, hey, she decided Bush v. Gore. She was the fifth vote. She was the one who decided in Florida that, well, we're not going to count the votes. She was the one who decided that George Bush was going to be president. She was the one who decided, she alone. She was the one who decided that counting the votes would somehow be injurious to George W. Bush, and thus we got 8 years of Bush. And I would argue that if we counted the votes, who knows where it would have gone. I know the New York Times and some other people threw some resources and maybe did a count. We don't know what the count would have come up with. We honestly don't. But we never will. I could argue, if we're going to play the what if game, could have argued 9/11 wouldn't have happened. We're a different world, completely different world with a President Gore. We don't have to go through 9/11. We don't have the great collapse in 2008. We've got national health care. We're closer to addressing our climate issues. So I could easily go, no, Sandra Day O'Connor, I can't possibly. But look, she was the first woman on the Supreme Court. That's historic. That's worthy. It's worthy of a crummy statue in the Capitol complex. But nope, not for 63 Republicans who had to stake their flag in the ground and say, no, we're not going to do that. Completely broken. And this is one of those things where you go, this is just a group of people who are the no machine. No ideas, no direction, no policy chops, no idea on how to govern. These are people who believe government is an enemy and needs to be stopped, and nothing can be done and nothing will be done. These are people who clearly tell us daily, government is bad, government can do nothing, and we're going to do nothing. These are do-nothing people. And are we surprised? And understand, come November when there's another election and these people stand before us again and say, vote for us because, hey, we're going to, do X, Y, and Z. Remember, these are the do-nothings. These are the people who have no ideas. I had to get that off my chest because it just, again, another one of those things that shows just how screwed up our system has been and why these extremists need to go. Some good news today. The president signed the legislation that would make lynching a hate crime. And I'm going, we're a little late on that. Okay, great. It's now hate crime. Good. Let's deal with all of the other things next. It's a good start. We're out of the gate. We're out of the box. Let's go. We got a lot to deal with. This is a good start. Well, we've taken the first step. This should be, I don't know, like the first step. Especially, I go back to the 2015, we did a civil rights tour where we went through, all of the southern states. And as I've said a million times, you now realize that in those states where, hey, we were really bad to black people, but hey, we've thrown up a museum. Come see just how horrible we were. And there are pictures and all kinds of stuff. And in every one of them, there are pictures of black people hanging from trees. When the anti-lynching bill would have probably been helpful? I don't know. Back then? May have been a little helpful then. But a step in the right direction. So good on the president and folks for getting that passed. It's about time. Let's get some other stuff done in that direction. Also, the big story today, another one of those moments where you go, yeah, duh. We kind of knew all this stuff. The more we're finding out about January 6th, the more that's finally kind of dribbling out. And I wish Democrats would be going, ramming this stuff out there. I wish they would be much more aggressive with this stuff and much more willing to come and talk and be much more forthcoming. According to the piece by Woodward and Costa, they actually have the phone records of Donald Trump's day in the White House on January 6th. Now, what's interesting is there's a gap in phone calls into the White House, into the Capitol switchboard of about 457 minutes from 11:17 a.m. on January 6th until 6:54 p.m. Nothing coming in. No calls placed to or by Trump for those 457 minutes. Now, we know that he had a lot of conversations with people. He had a conversation with Jim Jordan. He had a conversation with Mark Meadows. He had a conversation with a lot of people. Not on the logs. And that's making people wonder. Gee, are these doctored logs? Did he use a burner phone? Which is why burner phones was trending on Twitter today, because evidently Donald Trump made the genius statement of saying, quote, this is the Trump quote, "I have no idea what a burner phone is. To the best of my knowledge, I have never even heard the term." And yet, in a lawsuit filed by Mary Trump and the New York Times, the term burner phone is used by him at least 3 times. And John Bolton evidently said that during his discussions with Trump, burner phone came up in several discussions. meaning he's used it pretty regularly. Again, lie when the truth would be better. But I digress. Where were the phone calls being made from? And these are questions that I think are fairly important for the January 6th committee to be hearing. And this is the kind of things that need to be pushed forward and quickly. And today, the president has asked the Justice Department to hire, I guess the Justice Department wants to hire another 131 lawyers to help with the hundreds of prosecutions from January 6th. And here's my thing. I think I said this, let's see, check the old watch, a year ago. I said, hey, how about we put more lawyers on this? How about we speed this up, expedite it a little bit, so we start throwing these bums in jail and start really getting this ball rolling so that we can go after the big criminal? Because the news yesterday was, well, the guy at the top probably committed a couple of big felonies. Yeah, we got a couple of those coming. And hey, Merrick Garland, hey, how about a little bit of movement on that front as well? Now, what's interesting is you got Mark Wayne Mullen, who's running for Senate there in Oklahoma. He is moving to expunge the former guy's first impeachment. I'm going, wait a second. Can you do that? Has there been a law passed that you could expunge an impeachment? I wonder. Never mind. But he wants to expunge the impeachment, saying that Democrats didn't prove high crimes and misdemeanors. And I'm like, hey, Mark Wayne, great time to bring up the first impeachment. Brilliant thought process here, Mark Wayne, because look what's going on in Ukraine right now. Remember the reason that Trump was impeached the first time? For trying to strong arm? Remember trying to twist Zelensky's arm to dig up dirt on Hunter Biden, and in return for that dirt, Mike gonna give him the aid that was given by Congress to get the weapons that he needed to defend himself against Russia? Probably not the right time to bring this up. Just kind of throwing that out there, Mark Wayne. But here's the thing. The first impeachment, while I said was going to go nowhere, was the right thing to do. It was never going to pass. Everyone knew it wasn't going to pass, but you had to do it. It had to come. It had to be done. Because sometimes you have to do what's right. Sometimes you have to go and explore the crimes that are going on, even if at the time you're going to take your lumps. And look, Democrats took a beating over it. Well, you didn't win, you didn't do this. No, but you exposed the fact that this is what happened. You were in the right, you were on the right side of history, you were right in the moment, you were doing the right thing. And this is where I think the lesson for Democrats in this moment is, look at Clarence Thomas. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot there with Ginny Thomas, and there's a lot of shenanigans going on in that court. Right now, an impeachment inquiry into Clarence Thomas would not be a bad thing to look into. You're going to lose. You're going to lose badly. But to expose the kind of things that are going on, especially with that couple, I think is important for the moment. And I think, and I believe that by exposing the nonsense going on there, exposing the Federalist Society and all of the money that's gone into handpicking these justices and funneling money into their funds, I think you awake the American people to the reality that there are people buying our system. And look, the pressure will be there, but you've got to do what's right. Sometimes you got to ball up the little digits, and you got to get in there and throw some punches. Even though you're going to get decked, even though you're going to take a beating, sometimes you got to stand up and you got to do what's right. And I look at what they did with the first impeachment. You knew you were going to lose. You knew there was no way he was going to actually be removed from office. But you did what was right in the moment. That's important. Just my thoughts. Love to hear yours. You can give us a yell, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Love to hear your thoughts. You can also email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Got a lot to get to, lots to talk about. Remember, you can always download the podcast, never miss the show, never miss an episode or a thought, comment, anything. Gonna take a quick break, right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I look at what's going on in Florida, and wow, a lot of craziness going on in Florida. But Ron DeSantis has vetoed the maps. And not surprising, look, Republicans are taking the opportunity to rig the next series of elections at every opportunity. And look, this is what happens when you have absolute power. This is what happens when you give people the opportunity to rig the game. They're going to. You're going to cheat every time. It just is what it is. But DeSantis vetoed the boundaries that would draw the 28 congressional districts there in Florida. He is now, I guess, going to be calling the lawmakers back between April 19th and the 22nd for a special session because, hey, there are too many black congressional delegates. I'm not making this up. There are two the two that he's focused on, Val Demings and Al Lawson. He's ticked off. We shouldn't be protecting those black districts. No, this is his position. I'm not kidding. This is the position. What's interesting, because he's been specifically focused on the 5th Congressional District, which is Al Lawson's district, for a while. Now his map, the one, and this is one of those things where you go, again, this shouldn't be in the hands of the people who are being elected. When DeSantis gave his first thoughts on it, his maps would have given Republicans an 18 member advantage, 18 to 10 of the 28 districts. The second map he proposed would give them a 20 to 8 advantage. Right now, it's 16 of the 27. So it's 16 and 11. It's a little more balanced, even, still gerrymandered. Because understand, Trump only won the state, 51 to 48. So we're not talking about a lopsided state. This is a very close state. It could go either way. But when you start looking at how they cut and paste and how they creatively draw, this is how you come up with these maps. And look, Florida's not even as bad. I look at Ohio, where Ohio is taking a master's class on how to obstruct and delay and gerrymander and basically flip off all legal precedent and all law. Because look, they passed a constitutional amendment for their districts, that there would be a commission and the commission would have this power, and that there's this whole thing that the Republicans are basically just going, nah, I don't think so. Not for us. And they're slow walking this all the way to the deadline and just hope and go, you know what, hey, these are good enough. Let's do it. Let's try our maps for a year. And their congressional maps give Republicans a 13-2 advantage. So, Florida's going, wow, how'd you do that? Now understand, Trump only won Ohio, 53-47. So you're not even talking about even that big of much bigger of an advantage. But yet 13 of the 15 congressional seats would go to Republicans. What? And the Democrats aren't even asking for like close to a 50-50 split. That's the weird part. No matter how it's looked, no matter how this map is drawn, Republicans still get the mass of the seats. But it's not enough. Always want one more. And, I look at this thing with DeSantis, and this kind of obsession, I hope, is being watched by Republican voters. This kind of fascistic, kind of authoritarian mindset. I'm hoping that some moderate Republicans in that state are paying attention. The fact that they're spending all of their time on the culture wars and all of their time attacking people. I'm hoping there's some pushback. Now, these maps are important because, I guess June is when you have to qualify for federal office there. So I guess they're going to try and slow walk this through, like Ohio is trying to do. Now, interesting in Ohio. Ohio, I guess, is in May. So the longer they wait, the longer they hold out and nobody throws them in jail. Because I'll tell you, they should be in jail by now already. I would have thrown them in jail and I would have put them all in a big jail cell and say, look, no one gets out until you do your job. That simple. But here's the thing. Let's say they do go, okay, we're going to give you the year. And they win overwhelmingly, and they have, the super duper majorities in the House and the Senate on the state level. You got the 13-2 majority on the in the congressional level. First thing they're going to do is they're going to impeach the Supreme Court justice. They're going to install their own little yes person, and it's over. And this is my problem with the Republicans pointing their finger, going, Democrats stole the election. There's no proof of that. But right before our eyes, Republicans are actively working to steal the next election before a vote's even cast. I mean, this is the important part of this. This is the reason why these maps and the drawing process has been so incredibly obscene in a lot of these states. And why we do need federal legislation and a Supreme Court that's functional. We used to have, something of a Voting Rights Act. This is why we need something of an oversight. Hello, Merrick Garland, maybe something. I know there's a lot. I know you're a busy dude. I'm hoping you're looking at Trump. I'm hoping you're going in that direction to prosecute some of those crimes. But how about a little look towards the voting stuff? How about just a little? Just a little I'm hoping for. Just a thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What do you think? You think it's possible? Think Merrick Garland's gonna do the job? I sure hope so. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day the U.S. Supreme Court issued its ruling on the case West Coast Hotel versus Parrish. The ruling upheld a progressive-era Washington state law that established minimum wages for women. An example of protective legislation, it intended to guard health, safety, and morals of women workers. Elsie Parrish had been a chambermaid at the Cascadian Hotel in Wenatchee, Washington until 1935. She sued and won at the state level after she was paid far below the state's minimum wage. The parent company, West Coast Hotel, appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. They argued the Progressive Era law violated the constitutional right of individuals to freely contract with one another. This interpretation was common during the court's Lochner era. The 1905 Lochner v. New York ruling against maximum hours for bakers ushered in a period of anti-labor Supreme Court rulings. Parrish is considered the landmark case that brought an end to that era. The court argued that the Constitution does not speak of freedom of contract and added, quote, the exploitation of a class of workers who are in an unequal position with respect to bargaining power is not only detrimental to their health and well-being, but casts a direct burden for their support upon the community. What these workers lose in wages, the taxpayers are called upon to pay. The case is also considered instrumental in the switch in time to save nine. It was a reference to Justice Owen Roberts' surprising shift in favor of Parrish. This occurred just as President Roosevelt finalized plans to increase the number of Supreme Court justices to 15. Though Parrish did not overturn Lochner, it did mark a period of pro-labor rulings. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918, and someone was born who would forever change the retail industry in the United States. His name was Sam Walton. Sam Walton opened his first Walmart store in 1962 in Rogers, Arkansas. Just 20 years later, Sam Walton was the richest man in the United States. By 2014, Walmart had grown to the largest private employer in the United States, employing 1.4 million people. The Walmart company is staunchly anti-union. Recently, a campaign has emerged to organize Walmart workers. The campaign started because Walmart employees earn less than those at most other big retail chains. Workers often have to deal with erratic scheduling and part-time status, even when they want more hours. Many of the Walmart workers rely on government assistance just to make ends meet. A study of stores in Wisconsin found on average workers from just one store use nearly $1 million in government aid annually. But there's an effort to change all of that. It's called the organization United for Respect at Walmart, our Walmart for short. The group has gained media attention by organizing worker protests at stores across the country on Black Friday. The day after Thanksgiving is the busiest shopping day of the year. In 2014, Black Friday protests occurred at 1,600 stores across the nation. Union and community members have joined Walmart workers in pickets and rallies. Interfaith Worker Justice has also been a strong supporter of the campaign. While Walmart has done virtually everything in its power to break the spirit of the Our Walmart members, there is evidence that the will of the workers is working. In early 2015, Walmart announced that it would raise the base wage for part-time workers, proving that there is power in numbers and organized workers can fight and win for a better future.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, you remember when John Cena, the former wrestler, was doing his promo tour for F9, Fast and Furious 9, and he made a mistake. He actually said something about Taiwan not being part of China, or I guess he said it was a country. I had to learn Mandarin and had to apologize. Not just apologize, but grovel. I mean, it was one of these. His exact statement was, I made one mistake. I have to say something very, very, very important now. I love and respect China and the Chinese people. I'm very, very sorry about my mistake. I apologize. I'm very sorry. You must understand, I really respect China and the Chinese people. My apologies. See you. That was his message. And for his trouble there, he got castigated for not saying that Taiwan was part of China. So the apology, the groveling still wasn't enough, ultimately. And I said, is it really worth that? And so he did what he did. He took his beating, and he will always be mocked by people like me. which is why the reason I bring this up is not to mock him anymore, but to give credit to Keanu Reeves, who he has supported Tibet, and evidently China not happy, and he didn't learn Mandarin to apologize. So for that, I guess they have scrubbed all of his stuff from streaming into China. I don't think Keanu cares. But here to share some thoughts on this and the Chinese dominance and censorship and all of that, I've asked our good friend Scott Paul to come talk with us. Scott is the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, it's always great to be with you.
So kind of a long intro into that, but you know, you look at the apology tour wasn't enough. And look, I look at Keanu Reeves, who I've always loved as an actor, and this is just another reason, in 1,000 of stories that I've heard about him, to know that he's a great person, and this is another reason I like him.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's one of these. I mean, it's part of a larger issue here, which is that the Chinese Communist Party expects everybody in their country and outside of their country, if they want to do business in the country, to have 100% adherence to their dogma, okay, with no deviation whatsoever. And what you said about John Cena was spot on. Here you have this big tough guy who's like, oh, I'm sorry for calling Taiwan a country, right? And on the other hand, so he's example, he's example A, and he joins the rarefied company of like Mike Tyson and Steven Seagal as kind of B-list celebrities who have groveled to the Chinese leadership, to the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, so I think the important thing about Keanu Reeves is, he comes from a multicultural background, was born in Hawaii. He's made a lot of films that Chinese people like, right? I mean, the whole Matrix series, the John Wick series, and more. I mean, he's like a wildly popular actor in China. He's like a legit kind of A-list guy, like he is here, right?
Yep.
With the Matrix franchise and John Wick 4 coming out soon, and so his misdeed was supporting a cause that he believes in, which is Tibet, and ensuring that its culture is not decimated. And he was part of a concert that's an annual event in New York City at Carnegie Hall. And that's not even like a big rally. It's just a bunch of musical performances. And just for the sake of like being a part of that, yeah, they've tried to completely remove all evidence
Wow.
of him from Chinese streaming services. And I guess the thing about it is this, like this one. I mean, the losers here, I mean, Keanu Reeves will do fine. I mean, he's like, he's still an A-list celebrity. He's still got a big global audience. But it's the Chinese people who love his stuff who are going to be missing out on this. But my hat's off to him. He joined, Christian Bale is another one, Brad Pitt, Goldie Hawn, Richard Gere. There's many who have spoken out about the misdeeds of the Chinese Communist Party, but it's like it's a tough thing because I mean their censorship, they want to extend it to our shores, and I think that's part of the problem here is like, what, if they want to try to do to their own people, I guess that's their own business. I mean, we should speak out if we see violations, but you should not be touching the rest of the world and trying to encourage us to self-censor, which unfortunately Hollywood has done a great job of anyway.
Yeah,
right?
no kidding. My two favorite Keanu Reeves movies is Point Break with Lori Petty and Speed with Sandra Bullock. So this weekend, people should rent those and make sure that get a boost in those movies to help make up for any revenue lost because of the streaming. Just my thoughts. I do got to get your thoughts on the competition bill, which seems to be ramping up again. I thought for a bit it was going to be dead. Seems like we may be moving towards some action. Where are we now?
So yeah, last summer, the Senate had passed an initial bill that would provide some resources for semiconductor manufacturing in the United States, some supply chain reshoring efforts, and then some modest provisions on trade policy. It took the House of Representatives a while to do its own version, and it did a completely different version of this and passed it in February. And it has, by the way, semiconductor manufacturing funding, which is very important because we've seen some announcements of new factories, right? And also has some good trade policy in it. It will make it harder to violate U.S. trade laws and easier for companies and unions to try to block imports that have been subsidized or unfairly traded. So the Senate did a procedural thing just within the last couple of days that is allowing this thing to have an actual conference committee, which is, how remember, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. So now they're going to do a conference committee and try to get this done the old-fashioned way, which rarely happens, in Washington, D.C. But it is something that the idea of reshoring manufacturing that a lot of Americans support, whether they're Democratic, Republican, or independent. We saw that in the Senate vote. The House, it was more partisan. So we'll see what's happened here. But we're really pressing lawmakers to get this done, because even this bill and the $50 billion it has for semiconductors and other things is tiny compared to what China, for instance, is doing to try to keep the industry there in China. They want $150 billion that they are spending on semiconductor manufacturing in China. And so we don't need to go blow for blow, but if we do something, we will get some of this reshored, and it will make us more secure, and it'll create some jobs here.
Yeah, something's better than what we've been doing, which has been nothing. No, you just at some point you've got to fight back, and I think in this moment, especially coming out of the pandemic, the realization that you kind of have to make things at home. I mean, our supply chain issues are solely because we don't make things here anymore. Everything's stuck on a ship or stuck somewhere else. Or hey, here's the other idea: people are going, hey, we need it first. So we're going to manufacture for ourselves, and then whatever's left over, the surplus, we'll then sell to you, because we're not trading anymore. Scott, you know this. We're not trading. We're just buying stuff from somewhere else. So this idea that we're going to trade is nonsense. When you and I were kids, we traded things. I'll give you, a Mickey Mantle card for a Carl Yastrzemski, or however that worked. Or for me, it was
I would take that trade, Rick. By the way,
I would.
I gladly take your Mickey Mantle card for my Carl Yastrzemski.
See, I was a bad trader. I gave up a Nolan Ryan for a John Lowenstein, and I regret that. I regret that trade every day. But it was a trade. Yeah. It wasn't I'm just going to buy it from you, which is what we do today.
Right. That's right. Trade. I mean, we do export, so I'm not going to pretend like we don't. But it is there's a lot of traffic coming inbound, and there's not a lot of traffic going outbound. And you can see that manifested in a couple of different ways. One way is through the trade deficit data, which for goods, for actual things that you can manipulate and buy, and handle. Someday soon on the trajectory, it may hit $1 trillion, which is unbelievable to think about. I mean, you can't wrap your head around $1 trillion, but it will reach that annually on our current path. And the other way of looking at it is all those cargo ships, and we had for a long time, these ships lined up ready to offload into the United States, full of imports, mostly from China. And then when they leave empty. The ships are higher in the water because they're not weighted down with the cargo. Yep. The cargo containers are empty. And that is that's a symbol of what our challenges are. So we need to have the right incentives, both to export more, but also to make more of what we need here at home. And we've got a lot of work to do because we've seen the vulnerabilities with semiconductors when we turn to the clean energy economy. Another good example is the fact that we only have one mine for lithium in the United States, which is a key ingredient in all the batteries that we need for electric vehicles, for instance. And the list goes on and on and on. Active pharmaceutical ingredients. We make a paucity of those in the United States. And if a pandemic isn't enough to wake us up about the importance of having some of that capability in the United States, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Scott Paul. Scott's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, their website, if you want to check out the incredible work that they do. Now, you brought up solar panels and all of that, and I'm hoping at some point we're going to be making massive investments in doing those. And sadly, we don't make enough of them here. I'm hoping at some point we have a massive investment in this. But the U.S. I guess is looking looking into launching an investigation into Chinese solar equipment, and how they're spreading it around the world to get into the U.S. And this is the game the Chinese play. They cheat at every opportunity, whether it's currency manipulation, whether it's intellectual property theft, whether it's just out and out theft, or it's this kind of whack-a-mole game that they play. This is what's happened for so long that, we've turned blind eyes to it for so long. At some point, don't we have to stop it?
Yeah, perfect way to describe that as whack-a-mole, because that's unfortunately, some of the limitations we have with our trade enforcement approach, and because we have to go specifically after product lines and specifically after countries if these cases are brought. And you're right, what China does is kind of like sneaks the stuff in to like say Malaysia or Vietnam or some other third country. It's barely transformed at all, and then it's shipped on to the United States, and sometimes it's not even transformed at all. It's just kind of mislabeled as being a product of another country other than China. And so this type of duty evasion has occurred for decades, and it's been a real problem. And some senators have looked into this for a long time. I mean, Senator Wyden looked into this more than a decade ago with some other types of products. And so we should be very aggressive about this. And I think this is the key. It's like Joe Biden said that we'd have a worker-centered trade policy now, because we haven't had one before. We really haven't. I mean, we did have tariffs, but it's hard to say that workers were specifically at the center of that. But Biden has said, look, this is what we're going to do. And so this is a real test of it. And, already you have the solar developers saying, well, this is going to stop solar expansion in the United States, just the mere fact that they're looking at this. And it's like, wait. You're telling me that it's better to have an industry that depends on polysilicon and other inputs that are made with forced labor in Xinjiang, China, where there is a genocide underway against the Uyghur people, that's what you want to bring in to the United States, and then it's called a different name. It's called Made in Malaysia or Made in Vietnam or whatever, and that's what you want to bring in instead of trying to invest in our workers, in our communities. It's like, come on, give me a break. So this is all about worker-centered trade policy, trying to stand up these jobs in the United States, trying to make sure that we're stopping exploitation overseas, and trying to ensure that we're building our clean energy future the right way, so that we're not simply trading foreign oil for made in China solar panels. That is not a deal that is good in any way for the American people.
No, we're still dependent on bad actors. It's just a different type, and you're absolutely right. But here's the thing: there are a lot of people who are like, like you said, we can't do that here. We're dependent on. We need them. There are people who want us to go back to the pre-pandemic stuff. Let's just use the cheap exploitable labor. But that's not who they are anymore. And this is the thing that gets me. Even when we were beginning this, opening the door to China and giving them most favored nation status and permanent normal trade relation and all this, because hey, we were going to be able to do our low level cheap manufacturing there. There's going to be a ton of cheap labor. Even I was saying back then, that's not going to last forever. At some point, this was going to be the moment that was always going to come. They were never going to stay exploitable forever. And this is kind of where we're at, I think, in this moment.
Yeah, that's right. If anything, I guess it's a more mature relationship. And I don't mean that, in any adult sense, but it is, China the Chinese Communist Party has had a specific program that for this for a couple of decades has been able to move up the value chain in manufacturing. It's not just cheap plastic stuff that they're bringing into the United States. It's a lot of sophisticated things that involve technology because they've had a plan to do it. They've had a plan to attract foreign investment. And in some cases to steal intellectual property, and we've talked about that before. That the companies, who are in China should expect that to happen. It should. I mean, they shouldn't expect to keep it private, certainly, but that's what's happened. And so now we're looking at this where for the industries of the future that we want, China has a head start because it's attracted the capital, it's stolen the intellectual property, it's able to subsidize a lot of these industries that are inefficient because they don't have the profit motivation or need that we have in the United States. And honestly, they don't have the same environmental controls or the same, obviously, labor laws or enforcement of those laws. So there are a lot of built-in advantages that are misgotten. And our trade policy needs to aggressively confront these. And we have. I mean, we've picked our battles. We have picked our battles. We've picked a few battles. But the problem is much broader, much deeper, and we need to get with it.
I'm with you. Last question I've got for you, because, and it's kind of changing the topic a little bit, but, as it's become clearer that, China has picked the wrong bad actor in what's going on in Ukraine. How do you think they're going to respond, going forward to the U.S.? And, because look, we brought up Taiwan, we brought up Tibet, you brought up, some of the sore spots. How do you think that relationship's going to go going forward? Because, I think they were hoping things would go better for Russia and Ukraine, which would give them a much stronger bargaining position. Hasn't quite gone the way I think they were hoping for.
You're right. So, I mean, this is kind of a pop quiz, but it's like other than Russian client states, which include Belarus and the territories that they've invaded, and Syria, name another country that's kind of even tacitly supported what Putin has done lately, and it's China. They've either abstained from stuff, they haven't spoken out against him. China is literally the only major ally that he has in the entire world. And China knows this too. So they look really bad if Putin does bad. But at the same time, for a country that has always said that you shouldn't change borders based on military intervention, that those are sacrosanct, they've been awful quiet about that aspect of what Putin has undertaken here. And the other thing, Rick, is that as Western businesses have exited Russia because of sanctions and sometimes because of moral suasion from consumers and others, because it's the right thing to do, Xi Jinping has told Chinese companies to go in and to make some money and to do business and to supply Russia. So they see this as an exploitable opportunity, but they've got to walk a tightrope here because they're very, very isolated in this sphere, and so it's going to be difficult moving forward. And I think it makes it more difficult for the U.S. and China to cooperate in part because of this.
Well, we'll see. But Scott, I appreciate the time and the thoughts. Good stuff.
Of course, always great to be with you, Rick.
Thanks so much. Our good friend Scott Paul. Make sure you check out their website, AmericanManufacturing.org. We'll get links out on social media, how you can check that out. Scott Paul, the president there of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For working people, come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2 on On this day in labor history, the year was 1948. That was the day that the labor movement came literally to the doorstep of Wall Street. The United Financial Employees Union went out on strike. The union was started in 1941 by Merritt David Keefe, a page who had worked on the stock exchange trading floor. Keefe had grown up too poor to finish high school. He had gone to Wall Street in the hope of finding wealth and financial security. Instead, he found long hours and low-paying work. He decided the only way to change things was to form a union. By 1946, the union had grown to 5,000 members. Keefe described their platform, calling for a general overall minimum increase of 25% in the salaries of Wall Street employees, job security, benefits of a pension fund, and, in addition, a bonus computed on the volume of trading. Negotiations drug on. Finally, 1,100 union members walked out on strike against both the New York Stock Exchange and the New York Curb Exchange. 500 members of the Seafarers Union supported the exchange workers' cause. The first day of the strike was peaceful, but the next morning, the police told the strikers they could not picket the main entrance of the stock exchange. One 19-year-old woman refused to go across the street. The police reacted by grabbing her and arresting her. Outraged, the picketers rushed to her aid. Some attempted to lie down in the entrance to block the exchange. The police wielded batons, hospitalizing 2 strikers and arresting more than 40. Sadly, the strike ended in defeat in April, as 100 workers lost their jobs because of their involvement. The workers had lost the Battle of Wall Street, the first and only strike at the exchange.
Gotta be cool on Wall Street.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Real quick, I look at this and, as Scott said, the reality is the Chinese have gotten away with way too much for way too long. And at some point, someone's got to hold them accountable. And this is why I think Biden is doing the right thing. I hope Congress does the right thing and passes the competition bill. I'm hoping we take this moment and rein in what has been an uncontrolled situation where we've given away generational wealth. We've given away our manufacturing base for really what amounted to a CEO addiction to short-term profit and exploitable labor and exploitable environmental regulations. It's really what it was. We made the wealth class wealthier, and we made the working class poorer. We made the working class more desperate. But Rick, we helped build the middle class in China, and that's great. It's great. Help to them. That's good. But at what expense? At what cost to us? And the anger that you see in our country right now, across the board, has everything to do with the lost prosperity of the working class. The fact that ideal that you work hard, play by the rules, get ahead, that thing that we used to believe in no longer is true for a large swath of the population. The angriest swath of the population. And then you fuel that with the outrage factory and the chaos merchants constantly feeding them the outrage candy of, well, look at someone else is getting something you're not. And all of these others are the reason your life is not as great as you were told it was going to be, without understanding that the wealth of this country was given away. We didn't lose 70,000 factories of more than 500 jobs apiece. We didn't lose them. We know exactly where those jobs are. We know exactly where that American dream went. And the reality is we got to work to fight to get it back. And policy got us here. Policy can help get us back. That's why politics matters. It's that simple. And it's that important. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
This investment we are doing right now is also an investment in the decarbonizing of our economy.
A new plan to wean Europe off Russian fossil fuels. Exposé reveals how Senator Joe Manchin used his public office for personal financial gain. Plus,
we really did not anticipate seeing ice shelf collapse here.
Ice shelf the size of Rome collapses following Antarctic heat wave.
All of those disasters and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And you know what? Pete Buttigieg can take his electric vehicles and his bicycles, and he and his husband can stay out of our girls' bathrooms.
Why would two gay men want to be in the girls' bathroom with electric bicycles? This is your Marjorie Taylor Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, progressive journalist and the co-screenwriter of one of last Sunday's Best Picture Oscar nominees, Don't Look Up, David Sirota, tweeted that night, quote, "My thoughts on the Oscar slap incident are that it's 70 degrees in Antarctica and what's left of the livable ecosystem is being destroyed, and so we should focus on that."
Good point.
He's got a single mind there. By the way, it was 70 degrees warmer than usual in Antarctica. It wasn't actually 70 degrees.
Good point as well.
What do you got for us today?
Well, first up, President Biden and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Friday announced a new joint task force to wean Europe off of its reliance on Russian fossil fuel imports that indirectly fund Russia's war on Ukraine and gives Russia leverage over Europe. The U.S. will work with other nations to boost rapidly expanding exports of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, to Europe to replace Russian gas, ramping it up through at least 2030. Now, that will likely require new LNG infrastructure, which climate experts warn will lock in the use of natural gas for decades, thereby undercutting Europe's ambitious climate goals. But under the deal, the new infrastructure would be built so that it can be converted later to transport green hydrogen.
Good.
The deal also accelerates plans to cut demand long-term via faster deployment of electric heat pumps and energy efficiency upgrades.
Very good.
Plus, the EU will expedite planning and approval for new clean energy projects. Here's President Biden in his weekend speech in Warsaw, Poland.
Over the long term, as a matter of economic security and national security for the survivability of the planet, we all need to move as quickly as possible to clean, renewable energy. And we'll work together to help get that done so that the days of any nation being subject to the whims of a tyrant for its energy needs are over. They must end. They must end.
Russia, meanwhile, is trying to unilaterally alter contracts to force Europe to pay for Russian gas in Russian rubles, seen as an attempt to prop up the collapsed currency by forcing countries to buy it.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
On Monday, G7 countries rejected Russia's demands, but a senior Russian Federation Council member warned that if Europe doesn't accept the change of terms, Russia might terminate their gas supplies altogether.
Nice heat furnaces you have there. Would be a shame if something happened to them.
The move will test European leaders' resolve to stick together through the rest of the winter with reduced gas supplies while maintaining those economic sanctions.
We will hope for a sticky winter.
In other news, an ice shelf about the size of New York City completely collapsed off of East Antarctica over the weekend, according to satellite data. It came just days after record high temperatures of more than 70 degrees Fahrenheit above normal hit some areas of the icy polar region. The Conger ice shelf collapse by itself will not raise global sea levels, but it worries scientists because it was in a region long thought to be stable, not susceptible to climate change, meaning that previous assumptions about East Antarctica's stability could be wrong.
Wow, they had no idea that this ice shelf the size of Rome was going to collapse?
Yep.
Oy.
Finally, the New York Times has published a remarkable expose expanding on previous reporting by The Intercept that shows how Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of the coal state of West Virginia has used his career in public office to enrich himself. And the Times has receipts through extensive documents and interviews showing that, quote, at every step of his political career, Manchin helped a West Virginia power plant that that is the sole customer of his private coal business. Manchin's coal company supplies a special low-grade coal to the power plant. Plus, Manchin receives a slice of that power plant's revenue from the electric bills paid by his constituents. Quote, at every level of Manchin's political career, from state lawmaker to U.S. Senator, his official actions have benefited his financial interest in the plant for private gain, all while he blocks climate action at every step.
You know what? Someone ought to make a law against that. Check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So this is one of those moments where you go, there really is no depth that the former guy won't delve into. There's no bottom to how low he'll go. There really isn't. And I used to go, yeah, there's got to be somewhere. There's got to be a bottom somewhere. There's got to be, some bit of, I don't know, some pride, some bit of, dignity, something. Evidently, he did a program on this station, Real America's Voice. I've actually never heard of this. It's a cable access channel. The program is Just the News. Evidently, he did this interview that aired on Tuesday, where he basically, is begging Putin to dig up dirt on Hunter Biden. And I'm going, wait a second. You do realize he's the bad guy in this? And you go, yeah, he knows. That's why he loves him. And why he's still, even at the rally over the weekend, still calling him smart, still effusive with praise. And yet there are people in this country who still support this degenerate. Amazing stuff. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on, well, is there a bottom to this? I've asked our good friend Trygve Olsen to come talk with us. Trygve is the principal over at Viking Strategies, also a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. Trygve, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me back, Rick.
So I look at this.
I wish we had more interesting stuff than Donald Trump going on Wayne's World.
I guess it's a good way of describing it, but I look at this and you go, is there any depth that he won't go? I mean, look, there was, back in, 2015, 2016 going, hey, Putin, if you got those emails, send those. Okay. But right now, really?
Right. I know. Think about what if you're Zelensky, with everything that Donald Trump put you through, or the Ukrainians, right? And now you got the guy doing this, like he just won't let it go. Then it begs the question, what's there? And I kind of wonder if it isn't a distraction, right? He didn't have a very good week with some of the stuff that came out about 1-6, the phone logs, think about that, from 9:42 in the morning till 6:54 in the evening. There's no record of the president's phone calls. And yet the president, they know, was making lots of phone calls, right? So perhaps it's a distraction, but you think about what the carnage and the leadership that somebody like Zelensky is showing, and you've got this guy coming in from the peanut gallery with Putin talking points. It's nuts.
It is nuts. But again, this is one of those moments where you got to think, what if Trump was running back during the FDR era? I think you had a great tweet back then. Would you have been asking Hitler for help back then?
Right. I did have that. And in fact, it's Hillary Clinton's campaign retweeted it, and I couldn't figure out. I was in a meeting while my phone was vibrating nonstop. So it happens when the presidential campaign retweets you. But, I think the bigger point is, Rick, and this is something that every American has to decide. We face an incredibly serious moment in history. In terms of geopolitically, this may be as great a threat as what we saw going all the way back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? And we have to decide, each of us, are we going to be serious in serious times, or are we going to fall into a whole lot of politicians that haven't been being serious? And it isn't just about Ukraine and what we face geopolitically. It's all part of the same fight. What Donald Trump is doing, what Putin's doing, it's the same battle.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at, Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut. He tweeted out today, quote, "Every day Republicans find new ways to make it as hard as possible for the United States to help Ukraine." He said Senate Republicans just blocked the confirmation of Biden's nominee to oversee the Department of Defense logistics. In other words, the transfer of weapons to Ukraine. And for your information, Republicans have no objections to the actual nominee. He is a career civil servant who is non-controversial and unquestionably qualified. They're just objecting just to make life miserable for Joe Biden. And you look at this.
Oh, go ahead.
And you look at this and you go, why? Why in this moment do you choose to block this nominee, other than for that point, just to make things more difficult for Biden?
Yeah, and I mean, then, they can talk in broad generalities. I have concerns about some of the people he's nominating. I believe that's true with a number of major ambassadorships. I think that at least the last I heard, even with Ukraine, they haven't passed it's a civil servant. We have an ambassador to Ukraine, but it's not the one that was appointed. And most of these guys who end up being the ambassadors in these places are incredibly experienced individuals who have served presidents of both parties. And when these blocks get put on, they're just doing it out of spite. And again, it gets back to, the Ted Cruzes or the people who are putting these blocks on. They're not serious. They're trying to be pundits. It's about owning the other side. It's about personal ambition. It's not about policy, and it's not serious. And can you imagine this kind of stuff going on during the Cold War? I mean, with presidents of either party. Republicans weren't doing this to John Kennedy. Democrats weren't doing this to Ronald Reagan, even though they had policy disagreements with them, because it was serious times. When it came to what we were seeing in terms of confronting the Soviet threat, everybody was on team red, white, and blue. Yeah. Right now, we've got, the former president of the United States basically calling on Putin to release what he's got.
Isn't that amazing?
Even Richard Nixon would have never done that to Kennedy. Could you imagine him calling on Khrushchev to, release whatever videos the KGB had on him?
No, I couldn't. But, is there a moment that, because look, the Republican Party has gone from, Mr. Gorbachev tear down that wall to Mr. Putin is smart and a genius. I don't know how that happened to that party, but is there a moment that, because you brought up the Cold War, it looks like we're moving back toward potentially the next iteration of a Cold War as, I don't know, relations with Russia are going back to warm and fuzzy anytime soon. And certainly with China backing Russia and trying to fill the void where we're pulling out of, I don't know that that's going to go back to normal either. So interesting times do lie ahead. Will this, do you think, pull the country somewhat back to the middle of the road?
I think that depends on all of us. I mean, it depends on the people who are listening to your show, and it depends on their friends and family. And again, it gets back to, saying, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is not what party a candidate is running under, but is this a serious person who understands the issues that we face? Certainly in terms of the threat from Putin, who, is suggesting at some points, that we should be threatened with weapons that we've never experienced before. That's a direct threat. So people have to ask themselves that. I think in addition to that, every candidate running on the Republican side should be asked, who is a bigger threat to the United States, and forced to answer Vladimir Putin or Joe Biden. Because quite honestly, Donald Trump is in essence saying, which is Vladimir Putin's line, that Joe Biden is a bigger threat to the United States than Vladimir Putin. And that's just ridiculous. That demonstrates a complete lack of seriousness. And people shouldn't be under the false illusion that, when they see what's happened in Mariupol or places in Ukraine, that Putin wouldn't be more than capable or willing to do that to their hometown if he had the capacity to do it. I mean, we're lucky that we live in the most powerful country on earth as part of the most powerful alliance that Joe Biden's brought together.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with someone the other day, and I go, all those trillions of dollars we've spent since Reagan forward on Star Wars and missile defense systems, they better work. That's all I got to say. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Trygve Olsen. He's a principal over at Viking Strategies, also a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. If you want to check out the work that they do, lincolnproject.us, the website. If you're just now joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a moment of the program. I don't know if you saw what Mitt Romney had to say. It was on CNN, and he said that NATO might have to rethink what it's doing if the former guy gets reelected. He said, quote, if he were to come back as the U.S. president, I think it would represent a pretty dramatic departure for the world, and they would have to rethink whether they can count on the United States to lead NATO, to lead other nations as they push back against China and against Russia. Do you think that's something that the American people are going to think about at some point? Because, look, had he won re-election, I think this is a whole different ball of wax.
I mean, I think had he won re-election, it might not just be the Ukraine. It could be the Baltic states or Poland or, a number of places where we gave our word. I happened to be in Vilnius, Lithuania, when President Bush came and spoke about Lithuania and the Baltic states becoming part of NATO. We gave our word to all of those countries that we were in it together with them. I will tell you that the Trump 4 years of Trump really did immense damage. And when, for me personally, having spent a ton of time in that part of the world, the point where I said I can never support Donald Trump is when he called into question whether he would honor Article 5 of NATO. That is the security underpinnings which have led to the peace and prosperity that we've seen since the end of World War II. And Donald Trump was treating it like a protection racket. The idea that, I talked to the reporter who was interviewing him, one of the reporters, they gave him 5 opportunities to walk that back. He didn't. Mitt, in some ways, I think, was overstating the obvious. If Donald Trump comes back, the irony is, if Donald Trump comes back, he will do so with a bunch of people who think they're making America great again, and they're undermining one of the cornerstones of what has made America great since the end of World War II, something from which a lot of the other parts of what have made America great are dependent upon. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a real threat. He can't be allowed back in that office.
No, but what I get from people all the time, though, Trygve, is that if Donald Trump were president, this would have never happened. And I know we can't play the what ifs, but I get it would never happen, and I go, no, I don't know that's true. I think that we would probably send a gift basket had it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a, would Putin have felt compelled to invade Ukraine, or would he have just been able to push them around knowing that there had been no backing, and Poland and the Baltic states? I mean, that security apparatus, and I wrote about this on Twitter not long ago. So having been over there and having been a part of the process of watching NATO expand and the EU expand, what people need to understand is economic security and physical security, geopolitical security, military security, borders, the two are interwoven, right? And so the EU was about all of these countries becoming economically like us, capitalist countries. The NATO part of it really was about the political stability. Your borders are going to be secure, and the two go hand in hand, and they go hand in hand with the United States.
Right.
One of the things that I end up spending a lot of my time talking about over the last year is all of the risk to business and to working folks, by extension, who work at businesses, by our political, mess that we've had. That division creates a risk, because the reason why people come to the United States, they invest money, they build businesses here, they hire people here, has traditionally been, we are a place that's politically stable. Donald Trump called all of that into question. And we're seeing the consequences of that all over the world. We're seeing it in Ukraine. I think we're seeing it with a lot of the economic stuff. We saw it with COVID. And we have certainly a lot of parts of the Republican Party who have failed a leadership test in standing up and speaking the truth in the way Mitt Romney did about NATO.
That's an excellent point. Last line of questioning I wanted to get to, because we saw reports today that Russia's, they've pledged to reduce attacks near Kyiv. They're talking about kind of pulling back a little bit. And I saw on CNN that there's some reports that they are. You buying any of this?
I think you have to, Ronald Reagan one time said to Mikhail Gorbachev, there's an old Russian saying, trust but verify. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I think even with what we've seen from the Pentagon and the Ministry of Defense in the UK, both of them have kind of walked it back, that they're not seeing a lot of that at the moment. I will say it's amazing, though, how strong the Ukrainians have pushed back and have taken the fight to them. And they really should be an example for all of us about how passionately and deeply you have to fight sometimes for democracy, and that you have to stand up and speak the truth. And we have to have more Mitt Romneys, both on the Republican side and across all sides, saying the truth about what the consequences would be if Donald Trump comes back.
Yeah, excellent point. Trygve, I appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. I hope you come back and talk to us again real soon.
Yeah, anytime. And if people want to see more, they can follow me on Twitter. I have a lot more stuff written up there. So
good stuff, Trygve. I appreciate the time. Good stuff. Right. Our good friend Trygve Olsen. Make sure you check out the work that he does, or he is a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. You can check out their stuff, lincolnproject.us. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. Let's take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, I got to tell you, I look at what's going on in Ukraine, and he's right. People are fighting like you would not believe, because they're fighting for democracy. They're fighting for freedom, and that, again, what you would do in your backyard too. To me, the big part is how spectacularly the Russian military has failed in this moment. I mean, wow. Let's go to the phone lines. Got Alice on one. Alice, how are we today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I am great. What's on your mind?
I totally agree. 4 years of Trump have led to this entire mess worldwide. And am I imagining things, or do I not recall he blew off some sort of treaty about nuclear weapons or something and let it expire?
Yeah, I'll remember what it is in a minute.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, yeah, we got rid of that. Now we have Putin going, I'm going to send out the nuclear weapons. So, it's just a mess. And when he's asking for help again from Putin, this should be a first clue to everybody. But obviously it's not.
Yeah, it was the SALT treaty he walked away from.
That was it. Yes, that was it. All right, have a good evening, Rick.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. Yeah, I almost forgot all about that. I mean, it was one of those things where and this is where, there's the disconnect between the tough guy image and what people think of when they think of the former guy, and what he actually he does look. It's like any bully. You learn this in the schoolyard. The second you poke the bully in the chest, they either beat the tar out of you or they back down. And most bullies eventually back down. This is one of those. I'm in this moment where I'm hoping we as a country wake up to the reality that we've been getting screwed for way too long. And that there are too many of these bullies out there. And the right wing is full of them. And, I run into these people all the time who just want to shout and yell at you. And it's that right wing radio speak where it's just a bunch of, it's a word salad of insanity. It's just like, regurgitating blah. It doesn't mean anything, but just a lot of, a lot of catchphrases and a lot of buzzwords. It's just amazing times. Joe Manchin back in the news. I had to get to this quick. Joe Manchin says that July 4th, possible new deadline for a party line bill on the Democratic priorities. He said, if you can do something, I'm not saying anything's going to be done, but July 4th, that's the date. And this is the part that I love. He's going to give you a little hope. Give you a little hope. Going to be like the one, going to be like Lucy with the football. Here it is, Charlie Brown. And going to snatch it away on the 3rd of July. I think we need it. We desperately need investment. Absolutely, without question. But Joe Manchin's going to be that little tease that's going to see, here you go, and then he's going to pull it away. And for what reason, I don't know. I don't know what he gets his jollies out of this. But something that we desperately need, and his state desperately needs. This is the weird thing. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the country. Could use massive investment. The influx of cash into that state could help create jobs and pull people out of poverty and just do incredible things. Communities that need, Biden wants to, in his budget, wants to spend $50 billion on investing in low-cost housing. You go, well, $50 billion isn't a lot of money. In a place like West Virginia, it could be an enormous sum. But you got people like Joe Manchin, and Joe Manchin is right. This is the reason to go out and elect more Democrats in places like Wisconsin, in places like Pennsylvania, in places like Missouri, in places like Florida, in places like Ohio. Have you seen their primary? What a chaotic mess that is. And they got a great Democrat in Tim Ryan running. When we come back, there's a good Democrat out in Wisconsin that's running for Senate. Tom Nelson's going to be back on the other side to talk about his run against Ron Johnson and hopefully throw that bum out. maybe 4th of July, we can send Ron Johnson back to Russia. He can go back to Moscow for the 4th. We'll take a quick break right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1948. That was the day that the labor movement came literally to the doorstep of Wall Street. The United Financial Employees Union went out on strike. The union was started in 1941 by Merritt David Keefe, a page who had worked on the stock exchange trading floor. Keefe had grown up too poor to finish high school. He had gone to Wall Street in the hope of finding wealth and financial security. Instead, he found long hours and low-paying work. He decided the only way to change things was to form a union. By 1946, the union had grown to 5,000 members. Keefe described their platform, calling for a general overall minimum increase of 25% in the salaries of Wall Street employees, job security, benefits of a pension fund, and, in addition, a bonus computed on the volume of trading. Negotiations drug on. Finally, 1,100 union members walked out on strike against both the New York Stock Exchange and the New York Curb Exchange. 500 members of the Seafarers Union supported the exchange workers' cause. The first day of the strike was peaceful, but the next morning, the police told the strikers they could not picket the main entrance of the stock exchange. One 19-year-old woman refused to go across the street. The police reacted by grabbing her and arresting her. Outraged, the picketers rushed to her aid. Some attempted to lie down in the entrance to block the exchange. The police wielded batons, hospitalizing 2 strikers and arresting more than 40. Sadly, the strike ended in defeat in April, as 100 workers lost their jobs because of their involvement. The workers had lost the Battle of Wall Street, the first and only strike at the exchange.
Gotta be cool on Wall Street.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
The traffic clogging protest by truck drivers in the U.S. and Canada is about drivers being angry over COVID-19 vaccine mandates, right? No. That's the line being put out by right-wing extremists trying to use the legitimate gripes of truckers for their own political gain. The extremists are nuts, not the truckers. My Uncle Emmett was a highballing trucker in the 1960s when driving offered an honest job, decent pay, union protections, benefits, and normal hours. Then came the deregulation craze of the 1980s, pushed by corporate profiteers and right-wing ideologues who cast unions aside, crashed driver pay, and turned the job into a punishment. Pay today is so abysmal that most truckers have to drive dangerously long shifts of well over 60 hours a week, with many topping 100 hours to make a bare-bones living. It's a grind, too. You can't stand up for hours. You travel alone. Dinner is a gas station burrito. Bathroom breaks mean pulling out the plastic jug you carry along, and you won't get home for days. Exhaustion is a constant companion and a real hazard. Drivers call these big rigs 40 tons of death. Yet, corporate, political, and media elites, oblivious to all of the above, whine that America has a trucker shortage. Not so. There are plenty of licensed drivers. But get this, 9 out of 10 quit within a year of getting a job. That's not because of a vaccine mandate. It's because truckers are underpaid, overworked, endangered, and even dehumanized by bosses who install surveillance cameras, sensors, and other technology to record and report every twitch a driver makes. This is Jim Hightower saying, today's explosive truck driver protests are not a right-wing expression. It's a rebellion against the plutocratic system that the right wing has imposed on truckers and on America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So today I came across a new YouTube video that I loved. I love political season because I love the creativity of campaigns and how people are using social media and using all the tools available to promote their campaigns, to help try and raise money. And my next guest put out, I thought was an interesting ad. saying, look, I'm not a billionaire. I'm not self-funding my campaigns. I need a couple of bucks. Holding a garage sale. I love the garage sale angle. In fact, one of the signs I'd like to buy. So I'll dig into my pocket and for $15 buy the union sign, because I can use one of those as always. But like all campaigns, need a couple of bucks. I'm here to help, maybe sell a little of that and maybe get some folks to help him out. I've asked Tom Nelson to come talk with us. He is the Outgamey County executive. He's running for U.S. Senate there in Wisconsin against the evil Ron Johnson. And look, I'm hoping Ron Johnson goes back to Moscow for 4th of July, and I'm hoping Putin keeps him. But Tom Nelson, thanks for taking time for us.
Good to be back on. I like that. You can keep Ron Johnson. We're fine here without you.
Absolutely, but the sign. Let's talk about the video, because you're selling the kids dinosaurs. You got the jar of cheese balls. You got all that stuff going on. I want the sign. How do I get the sign?
Give me your address. I'll send you tomorrow.
All right, I'll send you the check, and then the check will be in the mail. But here's the thing, and this is where campaigns come down to money. And I know folks will want to help out. Nelson for WI.com, Nelson for Wisconsin. They can help out with the garage sale, right?
Yes, sir.
How'd you get the idea for the garage sale, and how much change have you been able to rile up from that?
Well, it's actually, I'll be honest, it's not original. It was a continuation of our very first ad. The very first ad we did was last year, February, which was the first garage ad. And it was right at the peak of the pandemic. And so the idea was to go through my house trying to find my kids' toys and hawking them for money. Because at the time, my first millionaire opponent got into the race. And so it was kind of a little light banter. But my wife did not want to have the photographer, the videographer come into the house because of COVID. And I wasn't going to go outside because it's Wisconsin in February. It was like 10 degrees. So the happy medium was the garage. And so the garage and selling things became the garage sale. And then it turned out pretty well. It was a pretty big hit last year. And so we thought we would do the 1-year anniversary of the garage ad, so to speak. So we've gotten some traction, got some attention, raised a few bucks too. So that's always nice.
Good, because you need it. Campaigns are about money. And look, you're running against one of the richest guys in Congress. He is a very wealthy guy, could self-fund his campaigns, and also, I'm sure raking in millions from all of the Republican donors. And I hope folks will go to NelsonForWI.com. We'll get links on social media. Now let's talk about how we're going to turn this country around, because I know recently you have come out with your full Nelson agenda on jobs and the economy. Because look, this is about making lives better. You're a working class guy like the rest of us. There are people struggling out there. We've got problems with our supply chain. We got problems with inflation. These are things that have to be addressed. These are things the president's going to have to address. These are things that we're going to have people in the Senate to undo the damage that people like Joe Manchin are doing. What's the beginning?
Boy, where do you start? But I think that's kind of the first major policy position paper I came out, the full Nelson, which is wrestling corporate interests and pinning inflation to the ground and making it America. In order to deal with the economic woes, it's not just inflation, it's not just income inequality, it's not just bad trade deals and so forth. What we have to do is there has to be a complete restructuring of our economy as we know it. With the kind of inequality we've had these persistent problems, even when there's good economic times, jobs in the economy is still a top issue. Why? Because the system is unfair. Even when the stock market's doing well, even when leading economic indicators are performing well, regular working families like those on the block I grew up with on Carolyn Drive and Little Chute, they're still struggling. So simply raising the minimum wage and simply making a tweak here and there, albeit important, is not going to solve the problem. So I came out with a plan that calls for fundamental change. everything from making the rich pay their fair share, doing something about market consolidation, monopolies, getting rid of these bad trade deals that have shipped jobs overseas, these neoliberal policies put in place by both Democrats and Republicans that has brought working families to its knees. And tying a bow on top of everything, I propose a national industrial strategy, because that's where we went wrong. There are two moments in history, in labor history, that this country made poor decisions, took a wrong turn. Number one was Taft-Hartley back in 1947. That was the beginning of the decline of the American labor movement. Number two, in the 1970s, when we failed to put in place a national industrial strategy, when countries like Japan and West Germany were eating our lunch because their governments decided, you know what, jobs are worth saving. Good jobs are important. Good industry is important. So they made investments in key industries, investments in workers, and they had strong labor laws. That was good for everyone. We didn't do it. We gave away the bank. We opened up our borders economically and just allowed these foreign imports to pulverize the domestic market, pulverize American manufacturing. Then you had Republican majorities eviscerate unions completely. So it was in a catastrophic freefall in the 1980s. So what we need to do is we need to look at history. Where did we go wrong? We don't have an industrial strategy, and we have labor laws that have hurt working families. That is going to be the crux of my economic approach, my economic philosophy. And it's not going to be done in 1 year, in one session. This is going to take progression. This is going to take generational change. But we have to start somewhere, and we need to have people in Congress that understand the problems we have in our economy, in our society, and we need wholesale, constructive, social, and economic change.
No, you are so spot on right. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Tom Nelson. Tom is the Outagamie County executive. He's currently running for U.S. Senate in the state of Wisconsin. You check out his website, nelsonforwi.com, nelsonforwisconsin.com. We'll get links out on social media. If you got a couple of bucks you want to engage in the garage sale, some great things for sale there. I'm purchasing a sign. Got to have this. It's a must-have for my collection. I highly suggest nelsonforwi.com to check that out. Now, to make your point, I'm sure you saw the story just the other day that Wall Street and the folks that work on Wall Street were going to enjoy the bonus pool of something like $45 million. That was going to equate to about $257,000 per person for their bonus. This is on top of their inflated salaries and all that. And you go over the last decade, their bonuses have gone from $174,000 up to $257,000, whereas the average worker's pay has gone from $52,000 10 years ago just up to $56,000, and the minimum wage hasn't gone up at all. And you look at the minimum wage, had it kept pace with the Wall Street bonuses back from 1985, the minimum wage would be over $62 an hour. You go, how do we keep pace with Wall Street? Because that seems to be all we seem to care about these days is how's the stock doing? How's the gambling on Wall Street doing? Instead of worrying about what's going on in Main Street, Tom.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's interesting is I saw those headlines, but it's just people are just so used to this that doesn't really make a lot of news. And it's not just because we've got war in Europe, but this is just something that I think people have grown used to and have grown numb. And look, I'm in an election where, you got Ron Johnson, who's a millionaire, but even the Democratic primary, I got a millionaire and a billionaire who are trying to buy this election like it's happened all the time. You can't run for statewide office without someone trying to buy, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. But that money and that power comes from the same source. So this is, and I have to stress this, this is not a partisan issue. This is an economic philosophy that has been embraced by both sides. And it has not been until Joe Biden has gotten serious about the billionaire tax, who's gotten serious about labor rights, who's gotten serious about making investments in the infrastructure bill, the attempts to build back better. This is the first time in a long time that you've got a Democratic president that understands this, that is not sucking up to Wall Street, that is not beholden to those interests. I've not taken any corporate PAC money, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican. If you are taking that kind of money, if you are responsive to those type of needs, you are not going to get the change. You are going to continue to have headlines about how having these $1 million bonuses. And look, that's all well, but look at this. Billionaires made $1.6 trillion during the pandemic. Not the top 1%, not the top 0.1%, but just 700 billionaires grew over $1 trillion in wealth. Those are the numbers we have to really focus. And look, this was during a pandemic. No one should profit off the backs of misery. People did not have work. People could not find childcare. People could not send their kids to school because of closures, because of COVID, whose education attainment, not only was it bad that year, but they have fallen behind and will be the case for years to come. And meanwhile, 700 billionaires cleared over $1 trillion in new wealth. This system is broken. This system broken. It needs to be tossed out and rebuilt.
No, I'm right there with you. And this is the conversation that we need to have with working people across the spectrum. Because what's interesting to me, Tom, is, doing what I do, I get to have conversations with people of all political stripes. And it usually starts off with, I heard your show the first time, and, then there comes the insult, whatever that insult is going to be. And then they get to the issue. And interestingly enough, once you get past the insult and then who they blame, the issue that they're angry about is generally the same thing that I'm angry about, and is generally the same thing that people who agree 100% with me agree about. It's just who we blame is different.
Yes.
And the insults are different, but we agree that the problem exists. And this is where I think we have to have these conversations on, okay, we both agree there's a problem. It's just, what's the solution? We've tried the neoliberal approach. We've tried the supply side voodoo Reaganomic approach. It's time to do the full Nelson approach.
Couldn't agree more, and we don't have to call it the full Nelson. It'd be nice if we call it the full Nelson. You can call whatever you do. We'll do the full Rick, the half Rick, the full Nelson. All right. But you're exactly right. And I think this also explains, and there's an explanation, people aren't dumb. This also explains the rise of Donald Trump. And I'm not sure if we covered this on my last appearance, but I believe the reason why Donald Trump was successful is that there's this populist vein coursing through this country. And of course, there are two different types of populism. There's populism from the left, and there's populism from the right. And on the right, it comes from a very, very dark place where you blame others, people that are different, people who don't look at you. It preys on your darkest angels. That's Donald Trump. But the concern is the lack of economic opportunity. Now, on the left side, it comes from a better place. It comes from the Bernie Sanders, who said, you know what, the government can be used for constructive change. But the reason why people are upset is because the Democrats has not embraced the economic philosophy of the FDR, of progressive Democrats. And Republicans ended up with someone like Donald Trump because their neoliberal policies, they got away with their tax cuts for the rich, with their supply side economics, because they divided and conquered working people against one another. It was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before the Republican Party caved under its own weight. They were able to push tax cuts for the rich and policies that have absolutely no benefit for working people. And the only way they got votes is because of divisive social issues. Finally, you had someone like Donald Trump come in and started, capitalizing on that and using phony economic policies to tap into that anger. And that is why he was successful. But shame on Democrats. Shame on Democrats for not sticking to our guns, not sticking to progressive economic policies that won us elections in the past. to say nothing about improving the lives of working families.
No, I'm look, you're not going to get an argument out of me on that one, because I've been railing against Democrats for the longest time. And look, I'm a registered Democrat. I'm honest about it. But they've been weak. I've been arguing that, Democrats need to find a spine. I've said a long time, in a street fight, most Democrats might offer to hold your coat. We need people who are gonna ball up their little digits and get in there and fight the economic fight. Let me ask you, last line of questioning. How do we get someone like you into the Senate? How do we help?
Look, my story is a story of so many progressive and underdogs before, which is I don't come from a lot of money. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire. I don't know a lot of rich people, so I can't really raise a lot of money on myself. This comes down to a test. Is this a grassroots campaign? All of my campaigns have been people powered. The only way that we can pull this out, I think we got a good message because you've been agreeing with me for the last 20 minutes. And I think my stuff makes sense because in the past, when we've applied these type of policies, working families have benefited. What I need is to have the strongest grassroots support as possible. I need folks going to my website and follow me on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook, and pitching when you can. I'm not asking for $1,000 checks. I'm not going to turn them away. But, chip in $5 here, $10 here, and come back. We're putting out great content. I think it's great. It seems like you like it, Rick, with the ads and so forth, the ways in which we can engage more people and talk about this. Because as our word gets out more and more, we try to be as inclusive as possible. I think people are saying, yeah, this is the kind of change we need. The people are right. We need some sort of economic populism from the left, not from the right, because this is the real deal. This is actually going to solve some problems. Yeah. So I need as much support as possible.
There you go. I need people to go to nelsonforwi.com, nelsonforwisconsin.com. If you want to help out, you want to get involved in the campaign. If you're in one of our Wisconsin markets, make sure you check out that website, nelsonforwi.com. And look, I've said this a bunch of times, Tom. I've got friends who've been in Congress. They tell me no one's ever bought my vote, but every time I ask for money, they get my ear. So this is one of those moments. Help out, chip in. This way, no one gets your ear. Tom, I appreciate the time. Great talking with you. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
You bet. Anytime.
Good stuff, Tom Nelson. Make sure you check out his site, nelsonforwi.com. Quick break, right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show. We're working people on the talk. Think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. I really like Tom Nelson. Good guy. Working class guy. This is the thing. If we had more working class people in Congress, I think a lot of our problems would be better. And look, this is why I love AOC so much. And there are a lot of people, no, AOC's, no, I love AOC because she gets it. This is someone who's worked for, she's not a millionaire yet. I'm sure she'll have a book deal or two. She's going to do okay down the road. But this is somebody who knows when she came to Congress, she was worried about being able to pay the rent those first couple of months. This is someone who understands the policy, the need to get things done. I like her a lot. If we could get a bunch of her into Congress, I think we'd be in a much better place, especially when you're talking about economic policy and helping folks and helping families get by. And like I said, you look at the reality, these Wall Street bonuses, this is just nuts. In a far gone era, good socialist president, Dwight David Eisenhower, that $257,000 bonus probably would have been taxed at about 80%. So Wall Street wouldn't even have bothered. But, we've got a tax code that's so boogered up and so weighted towards the wealthy and so weighted towards creating an unequal system. It's nuts. And speaking of unequal, this blew my mind today. I have been to the Buffalo Bills Stadium. Used to be Rich Stadium. I think it's still Rich Stadium. They're in Orchard Park. Beautiful place. My son and I went to go see the Broncos play there. It was fabulous. We had a great time. Loved our time there. Loved the stadium. I'm sad to see that they're going to replace it, but the news that they're going to build a $1.4 billion stadium in its place, 60,000 seats, $1.4 billion. The state of New York is going to pick up $600 million of it. Erie County is going to pick up $250 million of it. And the NFL is going to pick up $550 million of it. The billionaire owner, not going to pick up any of it. I guess they've agreed to sign a lease to use the stadium for 30 years. Which, like anything, means they could just get up and go. I'm like, why aren't they, building their own stadium? Why are we doing this? Now, understand, I understand New York cut a massive amount of funding from education recently. And you go, hold on, we have money for stadiums, but we don't have money. Hold on, let me get this straight. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. 3 days ago, they announced $800 million cut to children and family services. But they're going to spend $850 million building a football stadium. The largest investment by the state of New York in such a project ever. Does that make sense? Now, we know these kind of investments are bad for taxpayers. We know this. We know these are bad deals. I've always been a believer of, if this is what the billionaire owners want, this is what the NFL wants. They want a new stadium. They should build a new stadium. I liked the old one. Liked it a lot. But then again, I liked Cleveland Municipal Stadium. I like the new one. I like the new stadiums. They're okay. Still like the old one the best. When I took my son up to Boston, we went to see our favorite band, the Dropkick Murphys, for St. Patrick's Day. We got there early, so the venue where the concert was right across the street from Fenway. So we went and we did the Fenway tour. You want to talk about an amazing place. Built, I think, like 1913 or something. I forget what the date was. Like 1913, 1907 or something like that. Old world charm, just an incredible place. I can't imagine wanting to tear that down. I can't imagine wanting to just shred so that we can have, more loge boxes for rich people. I mean, because that's what happened in Cleveland when they tore down Municipal Stadium. Well, we need more loge boxes for the rich people. We need more wealthy sections to accommodate the wealth class so that we can have club seats away from the rabble, away from those people. And that's what they built. And, well, this is where the money's going. Congratulations. Money taken from women and children to fund wealthy people. That's America. Wow, what a bad decision. What a horrible decision. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Make the defense. I want to hear someone defend it. Bills fans, are you in favor of it? Is this a good idea? I don't think so. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com, that's where you get the podcast. Did you know we got a podcast? One of the best podcasts out there. You can get it anywhere you get your podcasts. Grab ours. Tell me what you think, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.